Lampião, the true face of the Cangaço, hero or villain. Virgulino. Ferreira da Silva, better known as Lampião, is one of the most controversial figures in Brazilian history. For some, he was a vigilante who fought against injustice in the Iuzur backlands, confronting colonels and elites who exploited the poor. For others, he was nothing more than a bloodthirsty bandit, spreading terror wherever he went. But the big question is, who was Lampião really? The official story outlines a profile, but is that the whole truth? Before continuing, subscribe to the channel, and let's learn more about the life of a feared man. Cangaço did not emerge out of nowhere. The backlands of the Northeast were a lawless land, where official justice rarely reached. Many backlands people lived at the mercy of powerful colonels, without protection or rights. In this scenario, Lampião and his Cangaçeiros were seen by many as a response to oppression. But to what extent was this taking of justice into one's own hands legitimate? Did the end justify the means? It is said that Lampião became a bandit out of revenge after his family was persecuted. He joined Sinho Pereira's gang and, over time, became the leader of the banditry. But was he simply seeking justice? Or did his path take a more violent turn? Many reports indicate that he applied severe punishments to his enemies, which raises another question: how far is the line between a vigilante and a tyrant? According to the book Lampião, o Rei do Cangaço by José Calçães, Lampião, whose real name was Virgulino Ferreira da Silva, was born in 1897 in the city of Vila Bela, in the state of Pernambuco. His family were farmers and lived in a region marked by poverty and violence, as described in the book O Cangaço, A História de Lampião e Outros Cangaceiros, by Billy James Chandler. Lampião's trajectory is marked by acts of violence and justice, as reported in the book Lampião, A História do Rei do Cangaço by Luís Macluf Carvalho. He applied severe punishments to his enemies, which raises questions about the line between justice and tyranny. According to an article published in the newspaper O Estado de São Paulo in 2019, Lampião became a legendary figure in the Brazilian Northeast with many stories about his life and career. However, as highlighted in an article published in the newspaper Folha de São Paulo in 2020, it is important to separate myth from reality and understand the complexity of Lampião's figure. In addition, the Revista de História da Biblioteca Nacional published an article in 2018 about Cangaço and the figure of Lampião, offering a broader view of the historical context in which he lived. On several occasions, Lampião helped rural communities by distributing money and food, earning the sympathy of many, as reported in the book Lampião, o Rei do Cangaço by José Calçães, 2010. But at the same time, he instilled fear in those who dared to challenge him. Reports of cities being invaded, looted, and executed show a cruel side to his leadership, as described in the book O Cangaço, A História de Lampião e Outros Cangaceiros, by Billy James Chandler, 2008. So was he a Brazilian Robin Hood or just a ruthless leader? According to an article published in the newspaper O Estado de São Paulo in 2019, Lampião is a complex and multifaceted figure who can be seen as a hero to some and a villain to others. O Estado de São Paulo 2019. Furthermore, the Revista de História da Biblioteca Nacional published an article in 2018 about Cangaço and the figure of Lampião, offering a broader view of the historical context in which he lived. Revista de História da Biblioteca Nacional, 2018. To better understand this duality, one only needs to observe the way history portrays controversial figures. How many leaders have been considered heroes by some and villains by others? Napoleon, Che Guevara, and even religious figures like Joan of Arc have been seen from different perspectives over time. Lampião is no exception. His iconic costumes, his weapons, and even his way of speaking made him a living legend. He was not just a Cangaceiro but a strategist, a leader who knew how to use his image to his advantage. To this day, his figure is romanticized in songs, books, and films. But to what extent is this legend true to reality? There are documents that show that Lampião even negotiated with political forces, being used as a pawn in a larger game. Some letters indicate that he maintained contact with rulers and was even considered as an auxiliary force of the government. If this is true, then he was not just a rebel, but someone who understood the politics of the backlands better than anyone imagined. However, his path was far from being all diplomacy. His gang did not forgive betrayal, and anyone who crossed his path without loyalty was eliminated. Did this make him a strong leader or a cruel man? Official history paints one picture, but popular accounts paint another. The fear that Lampião caused was real. Many cities closed themselves off when they heard that the gang was nearby. Some families felt safe under his protection, while others fled in desperation to avoid becoming targets. The same man who was seen as a protector by some was seen as a tormentor by others. Amidst so many accounts, one curious fact stands out. He was extremely religious. He believed that his mission was almost divine. He wore medals and prayed before fighting. Does this detail humanize his figure, or does it only reinforce the paradox of the man who killed in the name of supposed justice? The fact is that Lampião survived countless ambushes, escaped persecution, and deceived well-armed troops with bold strategies. He knew the backlands like no one else, used geography to his advantage, and always managed to be one step ahead. But, like every legend, his time also had an end. Lampião's image has spanned generations. Some see him as a symbol of resistance, others condemn him as a criminal. But one thing is certain: he changed the history of Brazil. His figure still generates heated debates, and with each new discovery, a new facet of his personality emerges. But does the official story tell the whole story? What has been erased over time? What really happened behind the scenes of the Cangaço? These are questions that make us question the truth about Lampião and what really happened at that time. If Lampião were to be tried today, how would he be seen? As a hero who faced an oppressive system, or as a bandit who spread violence throughout the backlands? Time passes, but the question remains: who was Lampião really? What if the story we know is not the complete version? What else could be hidden between the lines of time? Perhaps the next chapter of this story will reveal something even more intriguing. Lampião. What official history doesn't tell? Justice or cruelty? Virgulino Ferreira da Silva, the famous Lampião, is a figure who divides opinions to this day. For some, he was a hero of the backlands people, a man who faced the injustices of the Northeast with courage and intelligence. For others, he was a ruthless criminal who spread terror wherever he went. But does official history tell us the whole truth about him? Or could there be hidden secrets behind the myth? Cangaço emerged as a response to the extreme conditions of the backlands, where justice was often absent or partial. The backlands people lived at the mercy of colonels who dominated the land and exercised absolute power. It was in this scenario that Lampião grew up and became the leader of one of the most feared gangs in the history of Brazil. Many say that he was led to Cangaço out of revenge after his family was persecuted. From a humble young man, he became a strategic commander who knew how to exploit the geography of the backlands and escape government troops. However, his thirst for justice soon became mixed with violent practices, which raises an intriguing question: did he really defend the people, or did he become what he swore to fight? History tells us that Lampião challenged the powerful, but also collected taxes from cities and even killed those who did not collaborate with his gang. Was his sense of justice selective? He attacked the powerful, but also punished the weak. Many backlands people were afraid of him, while others saw him as a protector. Documents indicate that Lampião even negotiated with authorities, raising the hypothesis that he was more than just an outlaw. There were non-aggression agreements and even records of possible collaborations with politicians who saw him as a tool to balance regional forces. This suggests that he understood power games well. The reports of his brutality are also impressive. They say that he and his bandits had no mercy for traitors and enemies. There were executions, mutilations, and acts that today would be considered war crimes. How can these actions be justified? Was it the brutality necessary to survive in the backlands, or a dark side of his personality? Interestingly, Despite his reputation as a bandit, Lampião was a deeply religious man. He wore medals, made promises, and said he acted under divine protection. This shows a contradictory side, a man who killed in the name of his own justice, but who saw himself as a chosen one. This sincere or opportunistic religiosity contributed to the way he was seen by his followers. The police force that fought him was no saint either. The vigilantes, groups organized by the government to exterminate the bandits, were as violent as their enemies. Reports of torture, summary executions, and abuses against civilian populations show that this war was far from having a moral high ground. It was a game of violence and survival. The death of Lampião and his gang was brutal. In 1938, they were ambushed in the Angicos cave in Sergipe. Their bodies were decapitated and taken as trophies by government forces. This grotesque scene reveals something about the society of the time, the need to not only eliminate an enemy but to make an example of him. But did this death mark the end of the bandits, or did it just strengthen their legend? Over the years, Lampião has been portrayed in different ways. At times, he is the cruel bandit. At others, the last rebel of the backlands. He has inspired books, songs, and even films. But the truth is that his figure remains a mystery. What really happened behind the scenes of the Cangaço? How many truths were erased? If he were alive today, how would he be seen? As a revolutionary leader, a Brazilian Robin Hood who faced an oppressive system? Or as a criminal who chose violence as his path? The official story gives us one version, but what was left out? There are lost archives, silenced testimonies, and missing pieces of this puzzle. We may never know the whole truth about Lampião, but one thing is certain: his legend is far from dead. And you, what do you think? Was Lampião a hero of the people or a ruthless villain? What else could be hidden in this story? What does this story teach us for future generations? Lampião's story, with its complexities and contradictions, offers a vast field of learning for future generations. Instead of simply labeling him as a hero or a villain, we can extract valuable lessons that transcend time and the specific context of the Cangaço. The importance of critical thinking. Lampião's story teaches us to question simplistic narratives and seek different perspectives. Future generations should be encouraged to critically analyze the information they receive, to discern between facts and myths, and to form their own opinions, understanding the social context. Lampião emerged in a context of extreme inequality and violence. Understanding the social roots of Cangaço helps us reflect on the causes of violence and seek solutions to social problems. Reflecting on justice and ethics, Lampião's actions raise complex questions about justice, revenge, and morality. Future generations should be encouraged to debate these issues, to develop a sense of ethics, and to seek forms of justice that do not involve violence. The danger of romanticizing violence. Lampião's figure has been romanticized in popular culture, which can lead to the glorification of violence. It is important to demystify this image and show the real consequences of violence, both for victims and perpetrators. Valuing memory and history. Lampião's story is part of Brazil's collective memory. Preserving and studying this story helps us understand the past, learn from mistakes, and build a better future. 6. The complexity of human beings. Lampião was a man of many facets. He was a leader, a warrior, a religious man, and a criminal. His story shows that people are not entirely good or bad, and that their actions are influenced by several factors. 7. The search for social equality. Cangaço is a reflection of the social inequality that existed and still exists in Brazil. Lampião's story reminds us of the importance of fighting for a more just and egalitarian society, where there is no need for one man or group to seek justice with their own hands. By approaching Lampião's story in a critical and reflective way, we can transform it into a powerful tool for the education and awareness of future generations.